to the fifth lecture of Module 2. In this lecture, we shall give you demonstration of CAD/CAM packages. Those are useful for additive manufacturing. So this is going to be the content for today's lecture. We shall first discuss about a software called Inkscape. It is an open source which is popularly used for making these schematics, particularly the vector graphics. The same package can be utilized for generating the G codes for different types of toolpaths for additive manufacturing. We shall discuss how this Inkscape can be used to generate the contour toolpath and for area filling toolpath. Then after that, I will give you a demonstration of the open source which is called as Ultimaker Cora. Here we will see different types of STL file manipulation, slicing of STL files, area filling algorithms for STL files, and definitely in the end the G code generation from this open source. In the end, we shall also discuss about a commercial package which is PowerMill and PowerShape by Autodesk. We shall discuss how this commercial package can also be used for additive manufacturing purpose. This is very much essential to learn this type of commercial packages when we deal with the additive manufacturing processes such as directed energy deposition. Here we shall discuss about the object those can be realized on 3-axis CNC machines or the 3-axis manipulators, and we shall also discuss about the toolpath planning for multi-axis CNC machines or manipulators. So let us start our discussion with Inkscape. So as I said, Inkscape is a vector graphics software which is typically used to create the vector graphics, and it is popularly used for making the 2D schematic diagrams. You can easily download Inkscape just by typing on Google Inkscape, and you will find the first option, Inkscape drop freely. Now here the latest version can be seen here, download Inkscape 0.92.4. This is the latest version of the Inkscape. So you click on this link and it will direct you towards the download GUI of the same. There are several options. You can download the Inkscape for Linux, Windows or Mac OS. So if you are using Windows, you can select the option Windows and then select appropriately whether you are using 64-bit Windows or 32-bit. If it is 64-bit, it can start downloading the Inkscape either in the .exe file or the MSI format, particularly for the installer, which will require the internet to be activated while installing the Inkscape. I have already downloaded the Inkscape and installed, so I am just starting it from the startup menu, and if I type here Inkscape, I can see the application has popped up. I have the version Inkscape 0.92.3, just a previous version of the latest version. So I started Inkscape. This is typically the GUI of the Inkscape. This is how it looks like. You can see on the center of the Inkscape GUI, there is a page which is of the size which you want to keep it. For example, you are using the Inkscape for making some vector graphics, then you can appropriately use this size of the sheet appropriately based on the sheet you are going to use this image later on. If you want to change the setup of this page, you can go to File and change the document properties. And here you can change the size of the page. Conventionally, the available sizes are given here like A4, US letter, US letter, US legal, and US executive, A0, A1 and all. I am interested in A4, so I select here. You can even have your own option. You can even customize the size of the page by appropriately putting the value here. Please note that we are not going to use the Inkscape for making the schematic. We are going to use this Inkscape to draw or to generate the G code for us. Therefore, consider this page in the Inkscape as your bed on the 3D printer. Assume that I have a 3D printer which is having a bed size of 200 by 200 mm. And now whatever will be here some stroke or some lines along which I want to generate the G code should be within this range and appropriately wherever it will be available. And if I define the 0,0 at a particular location, the G code will generate with respect to that origin. So after setting the page appropriately, now we can bring out our stroke along with we want to move our deposition head to deposit the material. There are two options for that. First is we use the entities available here in the Inkscape itself to generate the stroke, or we bring the stroke from an outside image. There are different options such as this rectangular, box, circle, star, spiral, and you have the draw freehand also, and also the Bezier curves. Those you have learned in your CAD/CAM course, where how you can generate the Bezier curves to create the different paths. So like this, you can control the node and you can create the Bezier curves like this. Each entity in Inkscape usually consisted of two things. One is called as fill, another is called as stroke. So if I consider, for example, this rectangle, it is having the stroke, what you are seeing, the outer boundary, and the fill is the inside one. Now I want to change the stroke color something else, and I want to keep the fill color something else. So for that, you can press the Control Shift F, and that will open the fill and stroke options. The fill and stroke, you can see right now I am at the fill tab and there is nothing available here because it's closed. I can start with the flat color available inside the fill, and you can see as soon as I clicked on this, the fill, the inside region of the rectangular has been filled. Now if I want to keep some color for the inside rectangle, I can keep it, for example, red, then the fill is red and the stroke is black. Appropriately, you can change the color for the stroke as well. However, our interest is not really into the color right now, so I will keep it black only. And also I'm not interested in fill, so I'll just delete the fill as well. This is one option of having the path into the Inkscape. But if you do not want to use the existing entities of the Inkscape to generate any image, instead you want to bring your own image inside Inkscape, that is also possible. So let us assume that I have an image which shows the stroke corresponding to Gandhiji. So this is the image. What I want to generate, or I want to deposit the material in the white region of this image. So for that, first of all, I have to detect the edges of this image in such a way that I can extract this white color portion of the image as the stroke. Right now it is a JPG or PNG image, so definitely I have to trace its bitmap. So I'll click on the image and I'll go to the option called path, and here there is an option called trace bitmap. The shortcut for the same is Shift Alt B. As I clicked on this, a window will pop up and it gives us different options such as brightness cutoff, edge detection, and color quantization. If I select the edge detection, that is my right now interest, in that case, if I give appropriate value of the threshold, I'll be able to detect the edges from this image. And that is what I want right now. I want to detect the edge corresponding to the boundary of this white color portion of the image. If I keep this threshold very low, it will extract as many as possible lines from the image, and if I'll keep its value very high, for example 0.9, then it will extract less number of images, less number of edges from the image. So if I say for it, if I consider it's 4.9 and say update, then you can see this is the edge extracted from this image. Now if I'll keep it, for example, to 0.6 and then update it, I will have this particular image in this way now. This is of my interest. I say OK and close this window, and you can drag this stroke from the main image out like this and delete the image which was imported into the Inkscape earlier. Here, now as it's an entity of Inkscape, definitely it will be consisted of two things, fill and stroke. I am going to delete this unnecessary portion here, and I want to keep only the portion which is of desirable. Like for example, if I double click on this image now, I'll be able to delete these nodes which are not required, and those are corresponding to the written part here. Still, this image is consisted of fill as well as stroke. So I'll again go to the option with Control Shift and F, and this window will pop up where I will switch off the fill while only switch on the stroke. And now this is of my interest. What I want to use this image to add the material along the path. At the same time, I don't want to use some unwanted strokes. Those are here, hence I can easily delete them by double clicking here and selecting the appropriate nodes. Those I do not want, and delete it. In a similar fashion, I can delete the unwanted strokes from everywhere to refine my image further, but that is just if it is required. So after deleting all the unwanted strokes, now I want to move my deposition head along this path. I'll first of all appropriately place it on my bed wherever I will keep this stroke onto my bed. That on that portion only, with respect to 0, 0, the material will get deposited. So let us assume it is somewhere in the center. It is exactly not on the center, but if you want to keep it exactly on the center, you can press Ctrl Shift A, and then a window corresponding to alignment will open. And you want to keep it in the center, then you select here with respect to the page and bring it at the center of the page vertically as well as horizontally, and now you can see the image is exactly at the center. Now our steps towards generating the G code will start. Please note that Inkscape doesn't understand that whether it is adding the material, it only understands that it is going to remove the material. But we can utilize, our main purpose is to extract the G code for 3D printer. So whether it is assuming it's cutting the material or adding the material, we can manage with that. So the first step now towards that, we should go to the option called here extensions. Here there is an option called G code tools. And here the first option I'll choose to corresponding to my tool library. As I clicked here, a window will pop up as you can see, and there are options like different tool libraries. Whether I have a default tool, cylindrical tool, conical tool, plasma, tangent knife, lathe cutter, graffiti, just check tool and all. What I want is a simple tool, simplest available tool, that is cylindrical. So if I select the cylinder and say apply, it will create a block on the bottom side with the definition of the tool. I can break it downward because it is just the information for my future reference. So I can give the definition corresponding to the cutter here, like the diameter of the cutter. I can use maybe 1 mm diameter of the cutter, because in my case the nozzle diameter will be approximately very tiny, maybe of 1 mm diameter. Then at what speed you want to move your nozzle, maybe it is 400 mm per minute. Penetration angle, penetration feed, depth, and the other properties corresponding to the tool change. This is important in the CNC machine where you used to have a particular number assigned to a particular tool, but here it is not important for us. So with this definition, my tool has been defined. Now the next step will be go to the extension. So I'll go to the G codes and then orientation points. The orientation points will define where my 0, 0 is. So if I select the orientation point, and there are several options available here. Corresponding to each option, the definition of the same or what the purpose of these options are given here. If you are more interested, you can read these options. But I am going to use the 2-point mode where I can move, rotate and maintain the aspect ratio X and Y corresponding to the image, which is the very basic option available with me. Here if I select this 2-point method, it will create a 0, 0 on this sheet, and of course it will also ask me on this surface what is the value of Z, and if you want to cut the material, what will be the depth of the tool on which you want to go. So for example, I am saying that my surface is right now at 1 and I am going to go at a depth of 0 while depositing the material. All the dimensions are in mm, and if I'll say apply, it will create a 0, 0 on this corner and define another point which is at a distance of 100 mm. Now you can have an idea also that on your 3D printer plate, if this is the 0, 0, then where you are going to deposit your material on the XY plane. Of course, at this time, this is 1, z equals to 1 means this surface is at z equals to 1, but your material is going to deposit at z equals to 0 as it is written here. After that, I'll again go to extensions and I'll go to G code. Now my objective is to generate G code from a path. First of all, I should have a path here. So whatever I have here right now is definitely a path, but if it is not, I have to convert it into path. So if it is an object, for example, I'll select on this, go to path and convert this object to path. And only if this is a path which is defined by the Inkscape only, then only I can convert this path to G codes. So I have selected this path and now I'll go to the option extension, G codes, and I'll generate G code from the path. Now there are few options available here. The first one is bi-arc interpolation tolerance. So bi-arc interpolation tolerance is the maximum distance between the path and its approximation. If I say that this tolerance is very less of 0.05, meaning to say the approximation will not deviate more than 0.05 mm from the original path if required. The next option is maximum splitting depth. The segment, all these segments what you are seeing here on the path will be split into two segments if the distance between the path segment and its approximation exceeds the interpolation tolerance. So if, for example, at some point the distance between the 2 points is more than the tolerance, then there will be 4 different split in the path at these segments. Then of course you can choose the order of cutting, for example, or order in which you want to move your head. First, for example, the subpath by subpath, or path by path, or pass by pass. I'll consider the option called subpath by subpath, meaning to say I'll deposit the material on one subpath first, and when this subpath will finish, then only the second subpath will start. So for example, this is one subpath, what you are seeing here on the center side. This one is one subpath. So if material is started deposited here, it will finish first this subpath only. Now if I say, so if all these options are set, then you can also consider the option for depth function, and depth function has already been defined in our orientation point, so we will use that only. And our orientation point says that at surface z is 1, but it is going to deposit material at 0. So we are defining it by the orientation point, that is why d is written here, and d is the depth defined by the orientation points. Otherwise there are few other options also. Now let us go to the other options like scale along the z-axis, offset along the z-axis. Right now I don't want to do any offset along the z-axis, but in future you may generate different layers also by appropriately selecting the option here for the offset along z-axis. Now the important part is the preference. Here we have to give a particular directory in which we want to save our .nc file. So I have a folder here and I want to save this nc code in this folder. So I'll just copy that directory and paste here. Other things are unit are in mm and no post processor are required, but otherwise if you want, there are few post processors also available here. Now let us consider that if this is our final preferences, then we are ready to generate the G codes. Please note that if you are in this tab and you say apply, it will not work. You have to go back to this tab, path to G code, and then only you can click on the path which you want to convert and say apply. It will take a few seconds and it will generate the G code corresponding to your path. Now you can see our path has been converted. Each and every segment is shown here by a line and the arrow. as there are many segments in the center side, many arrows are visible here. But now let us go back to our folder, and we can see there is a file already created called 0001. That is an NC file. Now you can open this file with Notepad++, and you can see it has created the G codes for you. We already know the meaning of G00, that is the rapid motion, G01 for the linear interpolation, G02 for circular interpolation, and G03 also for the circular interpolation in another direction. So to verify whether the G code which we have generated is correct or not, you can check on any NC viewer. So let me just select the entire code and copy it, and I'll go to the website and open and start some NC viewer. Those are open source available. This is the NC viewer, and I'll paste my code here. So I'll first select Control A and delete whatever written here, and then I pasted my code. In the beginning, I'll put my cursor and say plot. And if I say plot in the beginning, then you can see your tool path is ready. If you want to check whether it is correct or not, or how it is going to deposit the material, and you can click on play. So this is how your deposition head will move along the path to deposit the material to realize this object. This is the last subpath. And done. Let us now consider another problem in which area filling will also be considered to generate the G codes. So let us assume that now for that particular case, I am going to use the outline of the map of India. So if this is the map of India, and now the objective is not to deposit the material along its boundary, but also to fill the inside area. For that, we will follow the similar steps here as well, but the additional step will be to fill the inside area. Let us first set the page accordingly. So for that, Control Shift D, and I can set the page size. Maybe it is 200 by 250 mm. And the map of India I will place appropriately wherever I want. Assume that if I want it to be exactly at the center of this bed of the 3D printer, which is right now here seen as a page, then I'll press Ctrl Shift A, and I will align this map at the center of the page. Once it is aligned at the center of the page, now we are ready to generate the G codes. So the first step is again same. We'll go to the extension G codes and click on the tool library. We will select the conventional tool, that is the cylindrical shape, and say apply. Then in few seconds we will have the cylindrical cutter available here. If we want, we can change the diameter of the cutter. I am going to change the diameter to be 1 mm. The next step is to bring out the orientation points. So we'll go to the extension G codes and then orientation points. I will again use the method of 2-point mode for the orientation, and I will define my 0, 0 at this corner and 0, 100 at a particular location. Of course, in that case as well, I am considering my surface is at 1 and I am going to deposit the material at z equals to 0. If you are depositing at a different height, then you can put that height here. On that height only it will cut the material which we will consider or we will utilize for adding the material. So if we are fine with this, say apply, and it has created 2.1 corresponding to the left bottom corner, that is our 0, 0, and 1 is showing the surface height. But when cutting it, it is going to be at 0. So our deposition will happen at z equals to 0. So now our next task is to generate the toolpath. Of course, like I said, there will be two toolpaths. One corresponding to the outer periphery, on which the tool will move on the boundary of the map of the India, and another toolpath will be corresponding to the inside area filling. You might have seen in my last lecture that the area filling is done by different means. What strategy we will utilize here should be called as the hybrid strategy, which is very much popular in most of the additive manufacturing softwares. In the hybrid strategy, the outer contours will be deposited by the contour offset method, a few contours only, like 2 or 3, and then the inside area will be filled by raster or some different strategy. So for that purpose, let us now go to the option extension, G codes and area. Here, first we will select this boundary in which we want to generate the area filling strategy, and a few passes like 1 or 2 passes will be generated by contour offset or by offsetting this outer path. So for that, the first option here is maximum area cutting curve, in which the entire area is the entire part is coming. So it is approximately 200 mm. That is fine. Then the width area. In that case, only one offset will be created if the area width is equals to half of the diameter of the cutter. So if I say it is 1, then of course there will be 2 passes created corresponding to the offsetted with this curve. This particular value shows the area tool overlap. Area tool overlap means how much percentage of the tool is getting overlap. So if it is a tool of diameter 1 mm, then the distance or the next pass will be at 0.5 mm far away from the first pass, because 0.5 has to be overlap. Now, if I say apply in that case, you will see that the two offsetted curves have been created. Now, these two passes will be first deposited, and then inside some other area filling strategies will be done. Now, we will select one of the internal curve. So right now all the curves are grouped together. So to ungroup them, we can double click on the curve, and one curve will be separated like this. Now I'll utilize this curve to further generate the area filling toolpath inside this boundary. First of all, we have to check whether it's a path or not. If it is not, we'll definitely convert this stroke, or sorry, this object to path. If it is already a path, then no issues, and you can see it's a path now. So let me select this curve, and if we'll go now to fill area option on the same tab, then there are few options available here. The first is zigzag, second is spiral. If I use the option zigzag, and let us see what happened if I say apply. It will fill the inside area by the zigzag passes. And as you can see here, now the outer few curves by offset contour tool path are deposited, and inside area has been filled by raster passes, right? In a similar fashion, if you want to have this raster in a different angle, that also you can do. So I'm pressing Ctrl Z to undo what I did, and then I'll once again select the single curve of the innermost boundary, and I'll select different angle now. So for example, if I want to create the raster passes but at an angle of 45 degree, and if I say apply, now you can see the passes are at 45-degree angle. Now they are not the vertical passes, as you can see. Once you are ready with this, you can of course extract the toolpath from here onwards and get the G code. But let us explore few more options available here. I'm again pressing Ctrl Z, and now this time I'm going to select again the inner boundary, and instead of zigzag, let me select the spiral and spiral 2 at 45-degree angle. So let us see what kind of toolpath it will generate if I select a spiral for inside area filling. So this is the toolpath now, and you can see it is a spiral starting from here and then it is depositing like this. So if you find this toolpath suitable, then you can generate the G code corresponding to that. This is how most of the 3D printer works. Like I have already mentioned, the outer few contours are deposited by the contour parallel strategies in order to get the very good surface accuracy at the boundary, and the inner is filled zigzag or spiral area filling strategies. Now, if you want to extract the toolpath, of course, you can easily extract the toolpath as well. So for that, I will select all the passes and first make sure that these objects which you have selected are definitely the path. To ensure that, you can go to path and convert it again from object to path. Now if you are sure that all the objects what you are seeing here are definitely the path, we can convert this path to G code. For that again we can go to extensions, the G code tools, and then go to the path to G code. Once we select this option, we can say apply, and it will take a few seconds and convert the entire path what you are seeing, that includes the area filling as well as the outer contour deposition, to G codes. So this is how the final part look like. We'll go back to our folder and see that there is a new path has been created, that is 0003. I'll right click on this and open with Notepad++, and this is how the G code file looks like. It is containing a lot of lines. Here it is having approximately 6,000 lines corresponding to the G code, that is corresponding to the linear interpolation, circular interpolation, as well as the rapid motions. To verify it again, you can select the entire code here, copy it and paste it into the online NC viewer to check whether what we have plotted is correct or not. So once you put all the entire code here, press plot, it will appear on the right side. Plot command, the toolpath will be plotted. So this is the top view of the same, and this is how the toolpath now looks like. You can see how it will deposit the material. So first it is depositing the inner area filling by using the spiral method, and then it is depositing the outer contour in 3 passes. Those are offsetted from the area filling. So if you zoom in and see, you can realize that these passes, those are the contour passes here, will give you the geometrical accuracy, of course, while the inner area filling passes, those are raster or the spiral in nature, can fill it with a very high speed. So this was all about the Inkscape, when it can be utilized for generating the toolpath for additive manufacturing. You can easily generate the G codes by utilizing the Inkscape. So next let us discuss about the Ultimaker Cora. It is an open source which can help us in generating the G codes, which can be later on transferred to a 3D printer or an additive manufacturing machine, and in that machine the deposition head can move relatively with respect to the substrate to deposit the material appropriately. The important part here is now we can process our CAD model that can be in the STL format. We have already learned about the STL format in our previous lectures, so we shall start with the file. So I have a file here called bracket, which I created first by using SolidWorks, and then I converted it into the STL file. It is in ASCII format. Then definitely if I'll right click on this and open it with Notepad++, I'll be able to read the file as well. Here you can see the file is consisted of the facet normals and vertex corresponding to each and every triangle of the file. There are total right now 2228 lines in this code. So what if I delete a few of these lines from here? then definitely my STL file will get corrupted, and then later on I have to repair it. Let us first see how this file looks like, and then we will delete some of these strangles and we'll see whether any open source is able to fix those files as well. That is popularly called as the STL file repair. So there's a software called Descartes which I have downloaded here, and I'm opening my STL files in that software only. So if you want to download the Descartes, then definitely you can go to website and type Descartes here, and you will be able to see this is the product I'm talking about. It is particularly for manipulating the STL files before processing it through a slicing software like Ultimaker Quora. So if you want to download, you can click here, and there are different versions in the download tab available which are able to download. So this is the free version which is called as View Expert software. The other versions which are enabling different modules or not really the basic version may not be free available or may not be the open source, but this at least the View Expert software, so it's a freeware and can be used for repairing the STL files at least. So this is what I have downloaded. It's called View Expert, and you can see here it's a View Expert written. So this is the file I have downloaded and I am using to view and manipulate my STL files. This software is sufficient enough to repair the primary level defects in the STL files. So this is how your STL files right now looks like in the software Descartes, particularly the module View Expert. It doesn't look like having any issue currently. So let me close this file, and what I'll do, I'll delete a few triangles, and let's see if I'll be able to repair that file after deleting few triangles. So let me delete this particular triangle from here, and let me delete one more triangle somewhere, maybe this one. After deleting these triangles, of course the line in the file have been reduced to 2214 from 2228. Now I'll open this file again in Descartes, and I'll say okay, the dimensions are in millimeter. I don't want to fix the model right now. I'll later on use a tab here available, fix model, but not in the beginning. However, if you are sure you want to repair the part, you can select this option in the beginning itself. But let us first see what is wrong with the file right now. As I have deleted a few triangles, you can see there is one triangle missing here, right? This is the triangle missing. And let me show you, there is one more triangle must be missing somewhere else as well, as I have deleted two triangles, right? So let us try to find out that. Yeah, so here is it. This particular triangle is also missing. So there are two triangles missing, one corresponding to this surface here, and another triangle was missing into this hole which is visible from the bottom side here, this triangle. So as these two triangles are missing, definitely the STL file is not correct and it may give you some defects. So let us try to resolve this issue. So I'll go to the option called fix model and I'll repair the shells. I'm selecting the default option. Those are saying that the normal stitch shell together, fill gaps in the shell if there are any, and other options I'm keeping default. So if as this option fill gap in all the shell by the triangles appropriately is selected, definitely if I'll say okay, you see that these triangles have been filled. Now there is no such error over here, and similarly here as well, the error which we were seeing earlier is not at all available. The triangle has been created. To verify it once again, I'm going to save this model as again the ASCII in the ASCII format, and I'll call it as bracket R, means the repaired one. And let us now go back and open this bracket R. This is the repaired file. You will find that now the number of lines are again 2228. While you remember I deleted two triangles, those bring down these lines to 2214. Now they have again recreated by repairing into the Descartes software. So it is important that before you process any STL file in the Ultimaker Quora or any open source for slicing, you make sure that the file is appropriately available and it is defect free. For that, this type of softwares can be used. Now let us start our discussion for the Ultimaker Quora. So this is how the Ultimaker Quora looks like. There are several such freewares available, particularly for slicing the STL files and generating the toolpath corresponding to area filling and the contour deposition. And later on, you can extract these contour data in terms of the G codes. Those can be easily transferred to a additive manufacturing machine. As you can see, this is the GUI of the software. I can import the appropriate machine. There are several machines available, additive manufacturing machine, particularly the FDM, the fuse filament fabrication or the fuse deposition modeling, or in general by ASTM it's called as the extrusion based additive manufacturing processes. Those machines are widely available here. If you want to add a printer, you can see if I add a printer, several options are available, several options with different company. So appropriately you can select the machine which you are having to bring it here and then do the slicing and then later on to transfer it. So I have selected the conventional Ultimaker Quora's machine only, the Ultimaker S5. And if I am using it, it is showing me two options on the right side. Then the first is if there are two heads, one corresponding to deposit the main material and one corresponding to deposit the support material. Then I have selected and I said that if I click on this tab, I can select the extruder 1 and it shows that the extruder 1 is enabled and extruder 2 is also enabled. The extruder 1 is using the ABS plastic as the raw material. However, if you want, you can change the material. There is a huge list of material available and the print core diameter is also given corresponding to the same. In a similar fashion, I can use different material to generate the support. I am keeping it same, but the color is different. I am calling it as blue ABS. The color is different, rest of the things are same. But if in your printer you are using a different material for support, you can select it appropriately here. Once the two extruders of the 3D printer are appropriately assigned, now we can bring our CAD model here. So for that, I have this bracket R which was repaired one. I'll drag it and put it into the table. So as you can see, it has appropriately kept the part in an orientation, and now my job will be first of all to orient the part appropriately. So we have made the STL file and appropriately now the STL file is with us. It is properly repaired. The next step is to orient it in such a way that different types of criteria can be fulfilled. We have seen there are several criteria we need to keep in mind while orienting the STL file. One of the criteria, like the number of holes axis should be along the build direction, the size of the base should be maximum while printing, or the requirement of the support should be minimal while printing the material. So we'll try to keep all these criteria in mind and appropriately try to align this part. It looks like, first of all, if this face will be on the bed, that will be a better option. So let me first rotate this part. So I have selected this model and I am going to select the option called rotate, and like I said, I am going to rotate this part about this green color axis, and once I'll bring it to the desired position, that is 90 degree, it looks like now to me in the fine position. If it is built like this, it will be appropriate. Also, while it will get built, it's better to rotate it further by 180 degree about the blue axis, which is here the Z axis, because then it will give me a proper view as well. So let us try to do that. If I select it, I can appropriately again rotate it about this blue axis. and I'm going to rotate it by 180 degree. Now the orientation looks fine to me and I can build the object. Here, if you want to even further scale the part, for example, you don't want to build such a huge part, then you can go to the option called scale on the left side. And if I say it is going to uniformly scale the part, and if I select say that 75% of the current one, it will appropriately select 75 everywhere because uniform scaling is selected. And now this is the size of the part. Few more options, like you can even move the part also on the bed appropriately so that you can build even multiple parts as well. Right now, as this is a single part, I'm keeping it at 0, 0, 0 only. Its center is nowhere but at the center of the bed. So now our task will be to explore the different options. Those are available corresponding to the process parameters. Those options are available here on this tab. Now if I'll click on this, two options will be available. One corresponding to the deposition process parameter from extruder 1, and the second is the deposition parameters corresponding to the extrusion from head 2. So let us first select the head 1, that is corresponding to the main material, and then we'll discuss about the support zone as well. The first option is available for the quality. We know that in 3D printing or in additive manufacturing, layer height critically defines what should be the quality of the part you are going to produce. Of course, if the layer thickness is less, your part will have a better RA value on the slant features produced. If the layer thickness is high, of course, your RA value may not be that good on the slant features. So we should optimally select this value, because if it's really very less as well, then in that case also your value may not be justified, because you will take a lot of time to deposit the material, which may be unnecessary. Also, it depends on the 3D printing process which you are using. It will also definitely have a minimal value. Beyond that or the lesser than that, it is not possible to deposit the material. So assume that in our case the layer thickness is 0.25. So this option is done for the quality. Next is the shell. Like I did in the case of Inkscape, I deposited a few outer boundary of the part by the contour parallel strategy, and then I deposited the inner area filling by raster. Here as well it is same thing. They are asking what wall you are going to consider to be get deposited by the contour filling part, and then the rest will be considered as the area filling part. So here the wall thickness, I am assuming that it is around 1.3, or maybe let us assume that it is of 1 mm. And then if given step over is available, then automatically it will calculate the wall line count corresponding to that. That means now 3 passes will be corresponding to the offset to the exact contour, and your accuracy will be quite high. You can of course increase the wall thickness in that case as well, but we will have then the compromise on the build time. So this is the shell. The next option is the infill. What kind of strategy you want to use to infill the material or the area filling? Infill is nothing but the area filling strategy to add the material. Here you can also define by what density you want to fill the material inside the contours. So if I say the material should be 100% dense, that means the overlap between the consecutive bead will be in such a way that there will be no porosity or no empty space in the layer. Then next option is I can select the different area filling strategies. So there is a huge list here. I'm not going to discuss each and every one. So we'll just select this zigzag one, which is the most popular. So inner area filling will be done by the raster passes. Those are the zigzag passes. Next is the material. Here we give the parameter corresponding to the material we are using. For example, you are using ABS plastic, then the printing temperature will be something else. But if you are using PLA, that printing temperature will be something else. Also, the plate on which you are building the part used to have, in some machines, not in all machines, some temperature that is called as the preheating temperature of the substrate. That usually we defined here. So let us consider the default option, those were already there, but these are very critical, very critical parameters if you are using a FDM process or any additive manufacturing process. Actually, what should be the temperature of the nozzle from which you are extruding your material? So let it be 240, and the build plate temperature also let it be 85 degrees centigrade. But you can change if you are going to change the material, or if you are not getting appropriate material properties with these parameters. The next parameter is corresponding to the speed. That is the traverse speed of the head. By what speed you want to move on the bed while depositing the material. Right now it is 55 mm per second. Let it be whatever it is in the default condition. But if you want to increase or decrease, you can type the appropriate value. So let us consider it as to be 60 mm per second. The next is the travel. So now it is asking, after completion of one layer, for example, or one path or continuous path of deposition, how it should move to the next path of the deposition. If I say Z hop when retracted, means after completion of one path, the head will go up, and then it will go to the next location, and then it will come down and deposit the material. In that case, the issue is you are losing some time. You are going up and then moving the head in the air, and then you are coming down and depositing the material. But it is in a way safer also, because if you are going up and then moving, some extra material available on the tip of the nozzle will not really get deposited on the undesirable or the already deposited bead, and hence there will be less chances of getting the defected part. So just to be on the safer side, I am saying that Z hop when retracted. So one more thing I would like to highlight here, if you want to know anything about any of these options, you just bring your cursor here and be stationary for a while. The explanation corresponding to that option is already written here. So the next option is the cooling. Cooling is typically required when you are particularly building the overhanging features, because on the overhanging feature, if the pre-built layer is already hot, it will have more chances of getting deformed. But if you really want to realize the overhanging feature, we want that layer to be quickly solidified and not really very soft, so that it can sustain the further deposition on top of it. So if you enables the cooling, you can also provide the speed of the fan. So let us say that I say it is running with 10% of its high speed or the maximum speed. Then the next option is corresponding to support. Do you want to generate the support? If I say yes, then only it will generate the support. In some additive manufacturing processes, we do not have the support mechanisms. That case is difficult to definitely realize the overhanging features until there is an inherent support mechanism available. Like in the case of powder bed additive manufacturing, we need not to generate the support, because the loose powder itself will act as a support material. But if you deal with like FDM process, which is particularly for the case right now, we required a support mechanism. So we are clicking here, and we are enabling this option saying generate the support. Now by which head you want to deposit the material? It says you want to use the separate extruder or the same extruder. If I select the same extruder, means the support will also be deposited of the same material. But if I select another extruder, then definitely the support will be deposited by another head, and that will be maybe having a different material as well. The next option is support placement. Where do you want to really deposit this support? Everywhere, or only on the touching build plates? So these options, like if I select touching build plates, means only the overhangs, those are having the support directed towards the build plate, will only considered here. That means, in other words, if you recall my lecture where I have explained about the stale support and the fresh support. So if I select this touching build plate, means only the stale support will be generated. No fresh support, those are directly or projected on the part itself, will not be considered. So let us consider everywhere to be on the safe side. So the next is the support overhang angle. The support overhang angle, if it is like 0 degree, then we are saying that all the triangles, those are overhang, will require the support. But if I say it is 90 degree, then even the triangle is overhang, it doesn't require the support. Let me try to explain it. If this is the build direction, you are building in Z direction, for example, in this direction, and if there is any overhanging feature which is at an angle from the build direction, and assume that it is at an angle of 45 degree from the build direction. And if I say that all the triangles those are making angle 45 degree from the build direction will require the support, and I type 45 here, then all the triangles those are having angle beyond 45 degree will require the support, and angle less than 45 degree will not require the support. In a similar fashion, if I say 30 here, that means all the triangles those are having 30 angle more than 30 degree from the build direction will require the support, and those are triangle having less than 30 degree will not require the support. Further, if I say 10 here, that means the triangle those are having angle more than 10 degree from the build direction will require the support. In that way, if I say 0, that means all the triangles those are even making any angle from the build direction more than 0 degree will require support. That means that will be almost like everywhere support will be required if it is slightly overhang. But it is not really the case. Usually all 3D printers gives us a tolerance beyond which only the support is required. Let us assume that that angle is 30 degree. Meaning to say, if this is the build direction and the triangle is having an angle of 30 degree from the build direction, it will not require support. And if it has the less angle than 30 degree, definitely it will not require support. But if it is having angle more than 30 degree from the build direction, it will definitely require the support mechanism. So this is about the support. You can also see when I select this, say 30 here, there will be a red color region available. So you see this red color region, this is the zone which is going to require the support. Rest of the zone which is in green color is not going to require any support. Like I said, if I reduce this value to 10 degree, you will see the area which was requiring the support has increased. If I further reduce it to 5, definitely it will further increase. But if I say this angle is, for example, 75 degree, you will find that the area has reduced, which required the support mechanism. So let us keep it 30 degree to be on the safe side, and hence this red color portion will require the support. So our next option is the build plate adhesion. So of course, when you build any part on a 3D printer, your object should be appropriately attached with the build plate, and it should not get detached throughout the process. Otherwise, there may be some error in deposition and your layer may get shifted. So to avoid that, there are few additional strategies usually used to make sure that the object is appropriately adhered with the base plate. So let us look at these options, like here, enable prime blob. If I enable this option, then I can even select which kind of strategies I want to use. So if I select this option called enable prime blob, then it will make sure that the material is always available when depositing the main material. So it will deposit some material on the side of the table and then will come and deposit the main material. So it's always safe to enable this option. Then the build plate adhesion types options are available, like brim, skirt, raft, and none. So let us consider the brim support, and you can definitely select the options like skirt, brim, raft, and you can explore them how they behave differently. Of course, it is asking that to deposit this build plate adhesion, additional material for the build plate adhesion with the base of the object, which kind of extruder you want to deposit the materials. Of course, it's not the part of the main object, then definitely we should select the extruder which is typically used to deposit the support material. So I have selected the extruder 2. So another option is dual extrusion. If I enable this prime tower, it means that it will print a tower next to the print, which serves to prime the material after each nozzle switch. Like if it is switching from main material to support material or support material to main material, it will make sure that the material is prime already. So let us not select this option right now, or if you will select, it will make a tower along with the object here. So let us select and we'll see how it looks like. Then there are few options, that the prime tower for the X position and the prime tower Y position, meaning to say where exactly you want to build this tower along with the object. So its default option is coming something. I'm not going to change this, but if you are particular for this position, maybe you want to make it here or here at a particular location, you may appropriately choose it. So if we are fine with these parameters corresponding to extruder 1, then we can move to the extruder 2. We have to make sure that now the extruder 2 is going to be for the support. So let us keep the layer thickness same for the both. Only thing I am going to change is the infill density. Earlier we have used 100% density, where I am saying the support should not be with 100% density, and maybe it should be with 40% density. And also I don't want to use the zigzag line, but a strategy like triangle to deposit the support mechanism. So why I am using less infill density to deposit the support? Because I want to remove the support later on easily, and it will be very easy for me if the deposited support is having a less density, and it will be very easy to break that support later on. So it's always good idea to keep the infill density for the support material deposition usually less. Rest of the parameters I am keeping same, and now we'll move to our next option for slicing. So everything is ready. Now we'll press the option slice, and it will slice the object. It has created. Now let us have a preview before saving the file. So this is how the object looks like. So this is your prime tower, which is correspondingly deposited when material is switched between 1 or 2, and this was the exact location for that. So we will not discuss much about that because this is a dummy and maybe wasted only. But other than that, you can see now how our support is generated on the desired region, that is in the blue color, and the main material is deposited in the green color here. Also you can see that the base plate addition utilizing the brim option was deposited. That is why this blue color on the base also you are seeing. So what is the purpose of it? Let me just try to explain this to you. As I have a support on the base side from the side of the base plate, when I deposit on the part, maybe on this portion, there will be less chance that the part is going to move in the XY plane. The brim support will support it from all the sides in such a way that it will make sure it is not going to move anywhere while depositing the material on top. However, of course, there is no large force we are applying, but due to the viscosity of the material itself, some drag is always there on the part that tries to move the part in the XY plane, which is undesirable. Because if it happens, then you may deposit the layers in shifted manner and you will never get the part exactly what you want. So now let us try to see the different layers, and we will do the simulation as well. So you can see this right side bar can show you the different position of the deposited layers. So if I consider maybe a location over here, and then you can play this on the bottom side to see how the material is going to deposit at this particular layer. So first you can see it is depositing material here, and then it is depositing the main material here. So it makes sure that the material is always available for depositing the material onto the main object. So that is why it first deposited some material here on the prime tower, and then it came back here. If there will be any switch, again the nozzle will go there and deposit the material. But unfortunately, right now in this layer there is no support mechanism, so you cannot see that. But we will consider a layer where there is a support as well. So you can see first it deposited 3 passes for the outer boundary by the contour parallel strategy that if you remember, we have already considered in the shell criteria of the process parameters, and then it is filling the inside area by utilizing the zigzag strategy. So you can see the tool is moving back and forth utilizing the zigzag strategy. So let me move faster here now, and this is how the layer is completed. Now let me show you another layer which will have some support as well in between. So this is the one. Let me start it. So it is first, the nozzle is first depositing on the prime tower, and then it is depositing on the base metal. And again the base material is deposited in two tool path. First few passes corresponding to the contour parallel strategy, and those are exactly in number 3 passes. I'll just show you that. So you can count 1, 2 and 3. It is currently depositing the third one. So after the third deposition, out from the outer boundary, of course there will be the deposition corresponding to the outer boundary. Only 3 passes are there, 1, 2 and 3. And then it is depositing the inside area filling by utilizing the zigzag strategy. Then after that, we know that this nozzle is going back to this prime tower, and here it will deposit some material from the extruder 2, because now it is going to deposit the support material. And now you see that, and it can be noticed that in this case right now the deposited material is not having the same uh, area filling density as it was corresponding to this main material deposition. This is because I have already explained. Anyway, I'm going to remove this support later on. So it is good to deposit this material always with the less infill density so that we can easily break it later on. So if we are happy with our tool path, then we can definitely save to a file. And I'm going to create a folder here corresponding to this Ultimaker Cora file. And now if you want, so this has been saved here in this folder. This is your Ultimaker Cora ums5 underscore bracket r dot ufp file. If you want, you can save this project as well, and I'm saving it in the same folder. Also, now if you want, you can generate the G code. So I'm going to export the G code files here. As you see, I have selected the G code, and I'm keeping the default name whatever it is giving. Now the G codes are also saved. So let me now show you the file corresponding to all three. So this is the file corresponding to the G code toolpath. It is written here. Now if I'll right click on this and open with Notepad++, definitely I can even read this file. And you see there are G codes available here. So you can use the same data to see on the NC viewer, but as there are huge lines, there are a lot of lines, it will be very difficult to see. So the G code file is ready to transfer to your machine to do the further thing. So this is all about the open source Ultimaker Cora. In the same principle, most of these freeware works. Those are typically used in additive manufacturing or in the 3D printing machines to deposit the material. The ultimate goal is always same. We have to get the corresponding G code files in the specified format corresponding to a 3D printer. So we know that in the case of directed energy deposition, there is a energy source which creates the molten pool in the substrate or pre-built layer, and then in that molten pool we feed the powder as a raw stock, or in some cases wire is also fed as a raw stock material. So now our aim will be to discuss about the utilization of a CAD CAM package for generating the tool path for particularly for DED process, because the part we usually produce by DED undergo through a machining operation. That is why the CAD file, which is typically used as in the beginning to process the slicing and other steps, is not really the STL file. It is because anyway you are going to do the machining, and those STL files are not good to be the initial file for machining process. It is typically because you are going to do some approximation of the curved surfaces on the CAD file, and that will lead to some tessellation on the machining surface also. Therefore, usually the Other formats are those utilizes the analytical curves to represent the boundary of the object. So for that purpose, we shall discuss about a package called PowerShape and PowerMill by Autodesk. So what you are seeing right now is the PowerShape, and there is another package called PowerMill. PowerShape is a CAD package and PowerMill is a CAM package. We usually do all the activities related to creation of the CAD file and any manipulation on the CAD file here in the CAD package, and then the generation of tool path and other such strategies usually happen in the PowerMill. So let us try to make the same part which we try to build by FDM process in the beginning, and then we'll consider a few complicated objects as well. So we have a CAD file of the bracket which is in the SolidWorks file. As you can see here, it's a SolidWorks part document, and I'm going to import this file into the PowerShape. It will take a few minutes to import the CAD model. So this is your CAD model. Now, as you can see, the surfaces are very smooth. This is because they are not represented by the STL format. So first of all, we should decide the build direction. So let me consider that we are going to build this part in this direction, as you are seeing here. And therefore, typically this direction should be along the Z axis, while it is not the case here. Therefore, I have to rotate this part first. So to bring this build direction along the Z axis, I have to rotate this part by 90 degree about X axis. So here I'll select the part, select the axis about which I want to rotate, go to edit and rotate the part by 90 degree. So if I say that and say OK, you can see now the part has been rotated. So this is how its isometric view will look like. This is the Z axis as you see here, and this is the build direction as well. Now, of course, it will be difficult to make this whole without any support structure by DED. Definitely, we'll ignore that part right now. We will discuss later on with another example where these type of overhangs can also be realized. So I want to slice this object and create the toolpath for that. Now for that, let us build a substrate. So before building the substrate on which we are going to deposit this material, first we will select a work plane. So I am selecting this part and creating a work plane by using the option work plane here, and this work plane will be at the bottom of the selection, and it is at the center of the bottom of selection. Now I will create a solid that is nothing but a rectangular shaped plate. So I'll click here so that the center of both are going to match, and now I'll click on this object solid 2 and right click here, modify its dimensions. I'll assume that its x-axis length is 120 so that it is outside the range of this base size of the object, and in a similar way let us consider it to be 300 mm long as well in y direction. If it is more, we can reduce it as well. So okay, 250 looks fine. Definitely you may need some portion of the substrate to clamp also, so you can accommodate all these variables here. Then the height of substrate I am assuming to be only 10 mm. Now if I just once have a look whether the substrate is fine, yeah, it looks fine. But here what is happening, the substrate is inside the object. If you are not going to utilize the substrate into the part, or you want to build few more parts on the substrate, then this substrate should be outside, not inward. Hence this part should move downward by 10 mm. It should not be exactly inside the object. So we'll do that. We'll again select this object and we'll go to edit and move this part in the Z direction by 10 mm. And as it's minus, so I'll write minus here. So as you can see now, the substrate has moved. Now on top of it, I'm going to build the part. So both the objects are ready. Now I'll save this part as a .ps model. That is the conventional model for the, that is the conventional file format for the PowerShape, and I'll save it in a folder. Let me call it as bracket PowerShape. So for that I'm writing ps. Now we shall transfer these objects into the Power Mill, and we will utilize the option of Power Mill that is called as the additive manufacturing module to create the toolpath. So first I will transfer this substrate. So this substrate I clicked on, I'll go to home and click on the button called Power Mill here. It will automatically transfer this part to Power Mill now. So here you can see the part has obtained. Also along with that, the work plane has also transferred, that is at the center of the substrate. Now we shall create a plane which will be corresponding to the slicing plane. It is recommended that you again go back to the power shape option and then first of all create another plane corresponding to the horizontal surface of the build object. So to make it more convenient, what I'll do first of all, I will just keep this substrate in level 0, this object in level 1, and I will now create, I'll just switch off this level 1 and I'll create one surface on top that will act as my slicing plane. So I'll go to surface, select the option plane and create a slicing plane. Now I'll just little bit extract it so that the plane is larger than the object. Now I'll just observe where the plane position is. It is quite low because we don't really want to build this substrate. We just want to build the object. So we will move this slicing plane above. For that again we'll do the same thing. We'll click, I have clicked on the plane, go to edit, go to the option move and move it in plus Z direction by 10 mm. As I said this, you can see the plane has been transferred at the top of the substrate. Now I will transfer this plane as well into another level, that is level number 2, and it has been stored in level 2. Now I will transfer this surface as well into the Power Mill. So I clicked on the surface, go to home and transfer it to Power Mill. As you can see, as soon as I clicked, it has transferred here in Power Mill and it is created as a new level in the level option. So the general is the substrate. This is your, so I'll change the names also here. This is substrate. This is your slicing plane. And now we will bring our object as well. Before that, I'm going to save this project in the appropriate directory. So here I'm saving it as, calling it as toolpath for 3-axis DD. Now we are almost set and ready to bring our object as well here. We'll again go back to PowerShape and switch on now the level number 1 and switch off the other levels. Click on the object and transfer it to Power Mill again. So here you can see the object has also transferred. Now you can see here the third object has been transferred here. Its name is surface by default because that is the name given in PowerShape. So I'll modify it here to another name and I'm calling it as object. Now our next task is to create the toolpath. So let us first go to the option called additive on top of the Power Mill. Here there is an option called feature construction. We'll select this option and it will ask a few questions like what is your slicing plane, like your base. So our base is this surface and surface is nothing but this slicing plane. Then which feature we want to slice. So our aim is to slice only this object. So I'll select the object and other parameters like the tolerances. Tolerance means nothing but the deviation of your generated tool path between the from the desired one. So let us keep a high tolerance of 0.01. Focal length is nothing but the distance between the your head and the melt pool. So in the case of laser based system, it is called as focal length. In the case of arc based system, it may be called as standoff distance. So it is just basically the distance between the head and the substrate which you want to keep in order to avoid any collision. So it should be 25 here, and that is where you are getting your appropriate melt pool size. Then bead width is nothing but the deposited uh, bead geometry's width, how much width you are obtaining. Assume that it is 5 mm, default value written here. Then next is step over. So step over, we know already, it is nothing but the distance between two consecutive passes in the xy plane or in the deposition plane. So if I say 50% overlap, then the step over should be 2.5. Tool axis, let us consider it to be a lead and 0 0 right now, because we are going to build only in z direction. Other options are corresponding to the area filling strategy. So if you click here on the left side on the raster, so raster is the by default option available here for inside area filling. But if you have developed your own area filling strategies, there are ways of generating them also in PowerShip and PowerMill. It's a very powerful CAD/CAM package for that too. But let us right now focus on the raster strategy only. So if it is raster, it can be one-way raster or it can be two-way raster. One-way raster means it will just go from one direction to another direction, and then it will lift and come back to new position and then deposit. If we consider two-way, it can have a connecting link between the two consecutive passes. So it's better to have two-way. In that way, we can save some time of deposition as well. Start from the lower left corner, or you can select other options as well. So lower left is the best one. Then the angle of the raster, let us assume it to be 45 degree. So it will deposit the material at a 45 degree from the in the xy plane. Rotation angle, it gives the rotation angle for each subsequent slide. If I say rotation angle as 10 degree, it means in the first plane, it will deposit the material at 45 degree angle, and then in the next plane, it will deposit by 55 degree angle, and then next 65 degrees, and so on. It will keep on changing the angle by adding 10 degree in that. So let us now consider these options for deposition. Next option is layering. It is saying offset from the base. No, we don't want to have any offset. We will start from the zero only. It is asking for the extent or the number of layers. So we can say height above the base or feature extent. So let us consider the feature extent. Wherever it is, till where the feature is, we will consider it to go there till that point. Layer thickness, of course, for time being, I will keep a very high layer thickness, that is 10 mm. You can even set the individual layer thickness also, and that is nothing but your adaptive slicing strategy, which you have already seen in last lecture. But we are not considering it right now because that will take more time, and you know that it can be done easily. If you look at this part, the adaptive slicing can be adopted in the overhang region or in the curved region like here. So this is the curved region and this is the overhang region. To appropriately create the part in overhang region or to create the part more accurately with the curved walls, you can consider the different layer thickness corresponding to the different height. But that option we are not considering right now, and keeping rest of the parameters same, I'll just calculate the toolpath. So it has created the toolpath. Now let us have a look how the toolpath looks like. For that, I'm going to switch off my object so that we can see the toolpath clearly. But still there are a lot of link paths here. Those are in the blue and red color. I don't want to see them as well. So I'll go to toolpath option and switch off the leads and links. Now you can see this is how your toolpath looks like. It is the toolpath corresponding to each and every slice. You can also do the volumetric simulation of this part while depositing the material here. Again, for that you can go to additive tab and you can right click on your tool path, say start simulation from the beginning and play it. So here you can see the tool is moving and appropriately showing you how it is going to deposit the material. You can also perform the volumetric simulation. So for that, I'll go to the tab additive and here there is an option called view deposition. So if I'll click on view deposition, starting from the base, if I say play, it will deposit the material and show you how it is going to deposit in the machine itself. So this is how your part will get deposited on the DED machine. Now, of course, by looking at the part itself, you can realize that the same part will require a machining operation also to create the final finished object. So this part itself can be exported as the raw stock for creating the machining tool path, and then using the same thing, same environment, same platform, you can create the machining tool path as well. There are several options for the tool path. So you can go to tool path, create the appropriate tool path for the machining strategy. Like you want to do the 3D area clearance, model area clearance and all these strategies are corresponding to removing the material. So the major benefit of using such a CAD CAM package is that you can utilize it for creating the tool path for additive manufacturing as well as to create the tool path for subtractive manufacturing. And that is how nowadays all the additive manufacturing system are going towards, they are going towards something called as hybrid manufacturing, and this is the best example for the CAPP of the hybrid manufacturing. Then of course, after generating this tool path, you can right click here and create the individual NC program for the same. Then this is your NC program ready. Based on the machine you are using, you can use the appropriate post processor by utilizing this option here. Assume that I am using the Fanuc. I'll say accept and I'll switch off the coolant and all because that is not really required. Work plane 1 is fine, and I'm going to save this file into the tool path which I created here. So I'll just copy this directory. And paste it here. Now let us see if it can write this tool path. So the tool path has written, and please note that now it is written for Fanuc controller, right? We'll close this, go back to our folder. So in this directory, you can find your tool path called toolpath 3axis gd.tap. .tap is the default format which PowerMill creates for the Fanuc controller based toolpaths. So if I right click on this and open it with Notepad++, you can see the G codes written here. And they are corresponding to each and every slice. If you want to see this again in the NC viewer, you can check. So I'm going to paste this data here and let's see if I can plot it. So here it has been plotted. Of course, there are several links here. That is why it is not very clear to you. But if you will simulate it, then you will be able to see that. So let us try that. So there are several links here. That is why we are not able to see it. We can even hide the rapid motion tool paths. So let us try to build it and that it will be more clear. So this is the first layer. And you can see it is at 0, 0, right? And the next layer will be at another level. So this is corresponding to the next level. And you can see also the angle between the bottom raster tool path and this one is the angle between these two raster passes is 10 degree because we said that in each layer the angle should change. Now this is the third layer, and similarly it will deposit each and every layers here. So this is how you can create the tool path by utilizing a commercial CAD CAM package. Generally, if this type of additive option is not available in a CAD CAM package, still you can use it for generating the tool path. For that case, you need to just find out an appropriate method of creating the pocket milling toolpath in that CAD CAM package, and then you can change that pocket milling toolpath to additive manufacturing toolpath. Yes, of course, you have to be very careful in such cases while creating the toolpath by such commercial CAD CAM packages. Now let us consider another case in which the object shown here, which is already imported in PowerShape, need to be fabricated by directed energy deposition based additive manufacturing system. We already discussed that such a additive manufacturing system like DED do not use explicit support structures for fabricating the metallic objects. Instead, they utilizes the multi-axis kinematics of the machine tool to build the part in such a way that each time while depositing the feature, the droplet can fall along with the gravity. So let us try to develop the tool path for fabricating this object by directed energy deposition through a multi-axis kinematic machine tool. So first of all, we will decompose this part. Of course, after learning more about the process, you will be able to understand that which part has to be decomposed. But in this case, it is clearly visible that the center portion, which is right now highlighted in orange color, can be easily fabricated on 3-axis machine because it doesn't have any overhanging feature required. But these features, those are on the periphery, will definitely require some support. So let us first build this center part, which is easily manufacturable on a DED machine without any support structure. So for that, I have already created in different levels of the power shape the different features. Those has to be realized step by step. Our objective is first to build this center part, what you are seeing here, and it can be built on a substrate like this. Of course, there will be a slicing plane like this, a horizontal plane, which will slice from bottom to top. Already we have seen this for a very simple case as well. So let us now start transferring the data. First we will transfer this particular object to Power Mill. So I selected the object, transfer it to Power Mill. Now the object is here. Also, a work plane has also transferred along with it, which is at the bottom center of the object. To see it, you can convert it to wireframe, and then you can see this is the work plane. Now I can import the substrate as well as the surface, which will utilize to slice the object and create the toolpath. So I'll go back to PowerShape, and now I'll switch off this, and instead I'll switch it on, and I'll transfer this substrate as well as now I'll transfer this surface also, which will be my slicing plane. Let me save this right now. In an appropriate directory, and I'll give it a name like toolpath for multi-axis DED. So we are almost ready. As you can see here in your labels also, there is a surface which is corresponding to your main object or the center object. Let me rename it. So let me rename it to the center part. So I'm writing just as the center. Then the second is this substrate. So let us rename it to substrate. And then there is a surface here, which I'll call it as slicing plane 1. Now we shall utilize the same strategy like we did earlier. I'll go to the additive tab and choose the option named as feature construction. Now in the feature construction strategy, we can, like earlier, select the base, which is type of a plane, not cylindrical surface or arbitrary surface. Right now it's a planar base, and this is a surface which is a slicing plane name we have already given. The area filling strategies are raster, offset and profile. We have already seen raster, so let us consider this time the offset toolpath. And now let us consider the feature, which is nothing but a collection of surface and nothing but our center, which we have already defined. Other parameters like tolerance, I am going to keep 0.01 only. The focal length is 25 mm, that is nothing but the distance between the head and your substrate. Bead width is 5 mm. Step over is 2.5, meaning to say there are 50% overlaps between the consecutive deposition of the beads. Then we move to the next option, the strategy, that is offset. So there are two options for that. One is called as the median axis for the drive curve, and that can go from inside to outside or outside to inside. Let us consider the other parameters default. I'll go to the option layering now. In the layering option, we don't want any offset from the base, but we want to create the layers up to the top feature. Default layer thickness, let us keep to be 20 this time, because I want to create many layers so that quickly I can demonstrate it. And then press the button calculate. Rest of the options I'm not changing right now, but we can further explore to learn about the other options as well. Once I say calculate, it will take a few seconds to create the toolpath, as you are seeing here. So the toolpath has been created. Now to see the toolpath properly, I'll just switch off the center part, and also I'll just switch off the links and leads so that you can clearly see the deposited toolpath. It can be noted now in our case, the toolpath is not raster. It is offset from the outer contour only. Let me switch off the other contours also so that you can clearly see the toolpath. Now let us try to do the simulation so that we can see how it is going to deposit or add the material. So it will start from the bottom, as you see. Now all the passes are offsetted from the outer contour, and it uses a strategy called median axis, which is very popular nowadays, particularly for DED. So after completion, the entire layers, this is how it looks like. You can also simulate its volumetric simulation. For that, you can go to additive and view the deposition. So click here on view deposition and play. So this is how it will deposit the material. Also, if you want, you can change the strategy from contour offset to other strategies, like we can keep it again raster as well. So if it is raster, we can keep it either one-way raster or two-way raster. It is starting from the lower left corner and angle 45 and no rotation, or maybe you can keep some rotation maybe of 20 degree for each and every layers, and then again you can calculate. Now in that case, what will happen? Your contours will be almost same. The only difference will be they will be filled by the raster toolpath. Now this strategy we will look at from the deposition view. So this is how it is going to deposit the layers in each and every slice up to 300 mm, whatever the height of this cylindrical feature is. So once we have built this center part, now our objective will be to build those radial parts over here. So for that, we will go back to our power shape, and now we will import the other features there. Here now, it can be noted that the feature or the first slice is going to be cylindrical slice, and on top of it, of course, we are going to build these features. So this set of the surfaces will be the feature, and this center part will be going to be the slice. So it can be noted that in this particular case now, the horizontal plane is not going to be the slicing plane. It is going to be a circular shapes or the cylindrical shape surface the slicing plane. So let us do that. Let us transfer this slicing surface first to Power Mill, and then let us also transfer these radial features to Power Mill. I am going to switch off this tool path for time being because we have to create another tool path now. So here you can see now both the slicing surface as well as the feature surfaces has been transferred. So let me change the name appropriately, and I'll call it as the slicing surface instead of slicing plane, and these radial features I'll call as the radial features only. Now let us try to develop the tool path for deposition of the material on this cylindrical surface. Of course, it is true that now your substrate has to be tilted for deposition the features on this cylindrical part. So as now, while depositing these features on this cylindrical surface, your tool axis will also change. Please remember that in Power Mill, all the time the tool is always aligned along the Z axis. Therefore, now your work plane should also rotate in such a way that your Z axis is radially available and your axis of the cylinder is along the X axis. So that is very easy to do. I'll just select this surface first and I'll create a work plane again by utilizing the option Home, Create Work Plane, and I'm creating a work plane at the bottom of the surface. Now this work plane is having Z axis that is vertical, right? Or that is aligned with the axis of the cylindrical surface. And hence your tool will be, or the deposition gun will be always along with that. And that is what we don't want. So what I'll do, I'll rotate this by 90 degree about y axis in such a way that x axis will be aligned with the axis of this cylindrical surface. So for that I'll right click on this work plane, go to transform and rotate it by 90 degrees. So I'll click on this y axis and I'm going to rotate it by 90 degree, and I want to rotate it in another direction, so minus 90 will work. Accept it, and now you can see the x axis is aligned along with the axis of the cylindrical surface, and now z axis is radially available for us. Now in that case your tool direction will change while depositing the material. Hence it will be something like this. So it is already activated, this work plane, and now we'll create a tool path. So the work plane is already activated and it has appropriately aligned the object now to deposit these radial features, and now we will create the tool path. So tool path can be created in a similar way fashion. We'll go to additive, go to feature constructions, and this window for the feature construction will pop up. Now the first thing, for the base we will select, instead of plane we will select the cylinder now. And also my surface for slicing is not a plane which we selected earlier. Instead it will be a slicing surface, which is nothing but the cylindrical surface now. Also the features are these radial features and it is already selected here. The tolerances, focal distance, bead width and step over I'll keep same. Now let us move to the next option, that is for the strategy. I am considering the raster strategy only for area filling, and will go to the option for raster filling. One-way raster or two-way raster? Let us select the two-way raster because that can minimize the number of lifts. And then start with the minimum X, meaning to say starting from the closer to the work plane. Then rotation of the object can be in clockwise direction or in anti-clockwise direction as per our requirement. Let us consider, and then the direction along which it is going to deposit is across the axis of the cylinder, or it can be along also. So let us consider the across in that case. If you want, we can control the start point as well, and appropriately we can give the rotation within the layer. When the next layer is going to start, the start point may change. It is sometimes important because we don't want that the starting point to remain same in all the layers, because otherwise the errors those are usually obtained in the start and the end of the process may keep on accumulating and gives a very bad results in the end. So let us consider it as a default value. Now let us look at the options for the layering. We will create the layers. Those are of course offsetted to the base surface, that is a cylindrical layer, up to the feature extent. We want to create the layers up to this feature, which is towards the radially up to this point. And then the layer thickness, let us keep right now 20. It's a very high value of course, but just to give a demonstration I am using 20 so that the simulation can happen quickly. One more thing we have to be careful here now about the rapid moves, because now your tool has to go to the safe position so that there will not be any collision between the deposition head and the part you are depositing. So now you are depositing material onto a cylindrical surface, hence your rapid moves should be in such a way that your deposition head is at a safe location, and then you deposit the material on its periphery. So consider that now the rapid move should be cylindrical, and let us calculate it appropriately. It will calculate based on your deposition on the substrate, that each time after depositing anything on the substrate, it will move to the safe location. Already the height of the safe position of the deposition head from the center of this cylinder has been calculated automatically. Now keep the rest of the options same and calculate the tool path. It will take a few seconds to calculate it. So once the tool path is created, you can activate it from here or switch it on if it is off, and then you can see your tool path. So now one can notice that, let me just switch off this slicing feature and keep only the slicing plane on. I'll also switch off on the tool path, the links and the leads. And now you can see these are the tool paths corresponding to the deposition on this cylindrical substrate. If I do now the simulation from the start, you can see how it is going to deposit the material. We can also have a look at the volumetric simulation of the same. Fine. So this is all about the multi-axis toolpath generation by utilizing the commercial CAD/CAM package. You can also import your robotic arm in real here and see these deposition strategies. Let us try to do that as well. So assume that I have a Fanuc robot which is along with the robotic arm and a positioner, that is nothing but your XY table. And this is how it looks like. Now our objective will be first to deposit the center part. So let us have a look at the deposition strategy for creating the center portion. So now we can go to robot control, bring it to the home position, and then bring it to the tool attached with it. Make sure that the tool path is activated, and then you can press on the record. And now you can see your robot can move along with the tool path where you are depositing the material. And it is a one-way tool path, that is why it is depositing only in one direction and then lifting and coming back. you know that it is not a very efficient method of adding the material. So let me increase the speed of this so that you can see in the end that how it will deposit this center part first. Once the center part is created, now I'll activate the second part of the tool path. That will be of course on this center deposited feature. So for that you can see the robot has aligned itself appropriately, and now if this tool path is activated and I simulate it from the beginning, you can see how it is going to deposit this radial feature. So it can be easily seen now that the tool has been tilted for depositing or adding the material on the cylindrical surface. It can be also done in another way if we say that the priority should not be given to this robot to get tilted, but we should give the priority to tilt this table instead. Those type of things can also be done. Let us try to explore that as well. I am bringing my robot to the home position. So we are saying the joint which is corresponding to this ternary table called as E1 will have more priority than the other ones. So I right clicked on that and said that they are on the high priority. So both these rotation of the substrate on the ternary table. So this rotation, that is the tilting, and this rotation which is corresponding to the rotary table are having now more priority. If that is the case, now let us simulate it again, and you will find that now this table is also making some motions along with the robotic arm. So that is how you can utilize this commercial CAD/CAM package for generating the tool path for machining as well as additive manufacturing at the same platform. So with this, thank you very much.